In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Glock 21 in .45 ACP. The Glock 21 was first introduced back in 1991, along with the Glock 20 in 10mm. The Glock 21 was largely developed for the American market simply because, as Americans, we love the .45 ACP caliber round. And when you look at this, you have to see the history of the .45 ACP to really appreciate it. And this dates all the way back to the Thompson-Lagarde tests of 1904 that led the Army and the cavalry to decide that the minimum caliber would be a .45 caliber round that was required for a new handgun for the Army. In fact, General John Thompson insisted on a real quote-unquote man-stopper pistol following the poor showing of the Army's .38 long Colt pistols that were used during the Philippine-American War back in 1899 to 1902. So as a result, John Browning developed the .45 ACP in 1905, which ultimately was utilized in the 1911 pistol, which was adopted by the U.S. services and used up until the 1980s. The .45 ACP comes in a number of different types of grain bullets, but the most common of which is the 230 grain bullet, and has been widely adopted and utilized by the U.S. Armed Services for a long time. So that takes us to the Glock 21. So what are some of the things that I like about the Glock 21? First thing is widely adopted. It's been attested worldwide, especially with military and a lot of police units. People love this, especially in short range shooting, simply because it is a very effective man stopper. One of the other benefits of the .45 ACP over the 9mm is a lot of police forces now are moving back to 9mm because of the ballistics of the new types of bullets they can utilize. But in the military, there are conventions worldwide that prohibit the use of frangible or hollow point bullets where you have to shoot full metal jacketed bullets. And the .45 ACP is large enough in and of itself that even as a full metal jacketed round, it is just devastating as a man stopper. So even though we as civilians can benefit now from newer technology with the hollow point type bullets, the military is still limited, and that was one of the reasons why the .45 ACP was so effective for so long. In fact, there have been reports of a number of different field hospitals and physicians who, for example, back in the World War II would report that a number of people that have been shot and injured with the 9mm would come into the hospitals, but they would far outnumber the amount of people that ever came in that survived being shot by the .45 ACP. It's just clearly a very effective round, and that's why the military had used it for so long. And then, of course, that's why ultimately Glock adopted it into the 21 for the American market because of our affinity with the .45 ACP. Some other things I like, it's a Glock. If you're used to firing a Glock, this is a typical Glock. It's a little bit larger frame, but the same type of mechanisms, 34 parts, etc. It comes with a 13-round magazine. Now, for those of you who have been fired 1911s all your life, you know that you have a limit to typically 7 to 8 rounds in a single stack 1911. Well, now it can bump up to 13 rounds, which it gives you an added advantage of extra capacity. The Glocks are also very affordable compared to many higher-end .45s as well as many higher-end 1911 .45s in the market today. I think you'll tend to find that the Glocks are very affordable in that regard. And it's also very lightweight and easy to shoot. And we'll go through some of the weight comparisons in a moment, but surprisingly, a lot of people will be very happy with how the Glock 21 shoots compared to other pistols out in the market today. So what are some of the drawbacks to the Glock 21? Well, the first thing is there's a drawback just inherently to the .45 ACP cartridge. The .45 ACP in 230 grain is a lot of lead. It's almost double the lead count of a typical 9mm. And when you're in the field or having to carry ammunition around, this can be a very big issue. For example, a fully loaded 13-round magazine, Glock magazine, comes in at 12 0.7 ounces. Compare that, for example, to a Glock 17 magazine, which carries 17 rounds of 9mm, and it comes in at 11, basically around 11 ounces. So not only is the 9mm providing you with additional rounds to carry, but it also is lighter relative to the 45 ACP. Another drawback is the size of the double stack magazine. So when you move from a single stack to a double stack, you add a lot of width, which ultimately has to be incorporated into the frame of the pistol to take the magazines. So not only is the grip typically a little bit larger and wider on the Glocks, but you'll also notice the frames are actually larger as well compared to the 1911s. 1911s have a relatively slim frame design relative to the amount of frame that's required in the Glock 21 to ultimately make this an effective pistol to shoot. The other part that people would say is when they look at the larger frame Glocks, like the Glock 21 and the Glock 20, is they feel large for what they are, and oftentimes they want to downsize that, but you have to understand the physics behind it. Most 1911s have steel frames, steel slides. All of this, ultimately, the more mass you have, the more weight you have, the easier it is for the pistol to control. In the Glock platform, of course, we have a polymer frame, so the only metal that's in the pistol is on the slide and the internal components. Therefore, the slide needs to be bigger to ultimately account for the amount of weight you need to comfortably fire and operate the pistol. And the other drawback to the 45 ACP just again goes back to the pistol round itself. The maximum chamber pressures for a 45 ACP is 21,000 pounds per square inch. Now you compare that to, for example, a 9mm which can take up to 35,000 pounds per square inch, and even 40,000 pounds per square inch for a 10mm. So at the time that the 1911 was developed, it is a relatively low pressure round, and as a result of that, even though it is a very effective man stopper, it tends to have limitations beyond that when you move into four-legged predators. Which takes us into the caliber and capacity. So we just talked about before, it is a 45 ACP. One of the benefits of the Glock 21 is it is designed and can be used to shoot plus P loads. So 45 plus P loads you are able to shoot these out of the pistol, which allows you to bump up your pounds per square inch to 23,000 over 21,000. Another thing about the Glock 21 is it uses what's called an octagonal polygonal rifling barrel. And I know that's a mouthful, but most Glocks that you see, the 9mm, the 40s, use what's called a hexagonal polygonal barreling. But in the larger caliber rounds, the octagonals work better because they provide a better gas seal for these rounds. And basically the main difference is it resembles more of a circle compared to the hexagonal. And that's what you'll find within the rifling of the Glock 21. As far as actions and operations, a typical striker-fired pistol, very simple, one fire, release to make safe. And you compare that, for example, to the 1911 platforms, which are single action. So you have a single action with the safety that you would have to fire to let down, and then ultimately it will recycle itself back to make safe. Again, multiple steps in the process of firing this as opposed to one step in firing the Glock platform, which is the beauty of the simplicity of the platform they created and the striker-fired system today. As far as ergonomics and weight, how do these compare? Well, the first thing you're going to notice between a Glock 21 is the weight. And let's go ahead and look at the weight real quick. So in this case, empty, it comes in at 1 pound, 10.5 ounces. Fully loaded, it comes in at 2 pounds and 7 ounces. However, one of the things you're going to notice, especially if you have a 10mm Glock 21, is that the Glock 21 or Glock 20, the Glock 21 is slightly less weight. So it comes in at 1 pound, 10.5 ounces, as opposed to the Glock 20, which comes in at 1 pound, 12 ounces. And the reason why it is slightly less in weight compared to the 10mm, even though they're the exact same size, is to compensate for the lower energy 45 ACP cartridge compared to the 10mm. So if you have two, there is a slight difference in weight between the two. Another thing about this is the width, as we talked about before. A lot of people like to carry these on their sides, and the 1911 has a very slim profile relative to the 21, so that's one of the things that you end up giving up as well. Since it is a Glock, it also is very easy to take down. If you're familiar with Glocks, you'll be familiar with the process of easy disassembly and use of this pistol. 4 major components: the frame, the slide, the barrel, as well as the spring. And of course, reassembly, once again, very easy to do. And you compare this, for example, to the 1911, where you have a number of different steps, which is relatively complex to complete relative to the ease that you have in the Glock 21 in taking down and firing. As far as options on the Glock 21, what are some of the things that I've done? One of the changes I made that you'll notice on my pistol is I included what are called Vickers Elite sights. I almost always change out to aftermarket sights on my Glocks, but I tried a different sight onto this pistol because I wanted to have the stack dot sighting system, and he also uses a little bit smaller dot on the front sight than you would typically see on a lot of stock sights, which I like. It helps with accuracy, and this is one of the sights that I put onto the Glock 21 here, which I love. I really like the sights, the Vickers Elite sights. You also can include things such as extended magazine or extended slide releases like I have here on the Glock 21, as well as you can do a Glock $4 grip job, which I have another video on, which again I did here on the Glock 21. As far as accuracy, what kind of accuracy can you expect to receive? Well, let me just show you at least what I've received out of this pistol. So in this case, I have different groups at 30 feet and 50 feet that I've fired out of the pistol, and then moving out to 70 feet, it tends to open up quite a bit for me, and then one-handed at 20 feet. So how does this all compare? Well, let me compare this, for example, to my Kimber 1911. And for those of you who are familiar with the 1911 models, this is one of the more higher end models. It's got a competition trigger on it, excellent sights, very easy to fire, typical good 1911. Now, when you compare the two at 30 feet, what kind of groups am I receiving out of my Glock compared to what do I receive out of my Kimber? So in this case, at 30 feet, it's pretty similar. It's a little bit tighter with the Kimber, which I would expect. It's a heavier pistol, better trigger. I had one flyer here, otherwise it was a very tight group. But when I move out to 50 feet, again, the groupings are pretty similar between the two. Now, if I move out to 70 feet, you can start seeing a little bit of separation here between the Glock 21 and the Kimber 1911. In this case with the Kimber, I was able to fire a much tighter group at 70 feet than I was versus the Glock 21. And then my one-handed 20-foot groups were almost identical as well. So the only really separation I'm seeing as far as accuracy is when I go beyond 50 feet. But 50 feet in, I'm pretty much consistently accurate with the Glock 21 as I am with my 1911s. And again, this is me firing. I understand there's other people out there that I'm sure can shoot much more accurate than I can, but at least these are my experiences I have. But when I move beyond 50 feet, I tend to find more accuracy with the 1911 as opposed to the Glock 21. So as far as alternatives, what's on the market today? Well, Glock makes a model similar to the 10mm 29, same size, that is called the Glock 30. And then they have different variants. They have the 30, 30SF, and the 30S. And you can see some of the differences here if I just lay them over in size between the two. They have the same width frames, but the frames are shorter as well as the grips are typically shorter. And you're going to feel this when you fire them, especially if you fire the Glock 30S, which is a subcompact with a slim frame. I've actually used to own one of those, and it just was so uncomfortable for me to fire, I just decided not to use it because it gave up so much accuracy, at least for me. There also are the 36, which are the slim frame single stack options. So again, similar size, but the slim version single stack. And then we now have a 41, Glock 41, which is a competition longer slide version as well. So you have a number of different variants out there just on the Glock side alone for the 45 ACP. And then of course you have a ton of options now on the 1911 side, and they're just getting better and better out there today. This is one of the ones I've liked and shot for years, but again, there's many great options out there. So as far as utility, what is the Glock 21 good for? It's good for combat and protection for two-legged predators. You know, as General Thompson said, it is a real man-stopper, and that's what you have with the 45 ACP. And with the added capacity and ease of use, it really is an effective tool, especially at short to medium range, especially for protection against two-legged predators. Just excellent pistol for that regard. So overall, high quality. It's a Glock, which means there's a lot of simplicity to the pistol. People are used to the platform today. It is a really effective man stopper. You don't need to buy really expensive rounds out there to even be effective with this pistol. Some of the ones that I like, for example, the most are the Federal HST if you want a hollow point round, as opposed to Underwood Ammo also makes a great round here in the Plus P version. Now the Federal comes out at about 950 feet per second. The standard feet per second is around 850 for basic rounds, but you can see this gets bumped up with the Plus P loads where they come out to almost 1,000 feet per second with the 230 grain bullet, which is again very exceptional, typical of what you would see out of Underwood Ammo. It is relatively accurate, especially compared to my 1911s. It is affordable. These are very affordable compared to many of the high-end 45s that you would see today. It's a Glock. They tend to hold their value very well, extremely reliable, and universally used. So that's my review of the Glock 21, one of my favorite pistols. If you like this video or you like our channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.